Good morning, or good afternoon now. Please be seated. Well, thank you, Mr. Ogunbawo. And I think that for those who missed the gala night yesterday, the agenda perhaps had been set even before we received the resolutions this morning. A couple of young people were sharing their dreams that set an agenda for us in government and for those of you captains and leaders of the private sector. A young man who lived in Mushin, who said that he was buffeted in the day and the night by all types of noise, by people generating their own power. And that he knew that in some other part of the state, in Lekki, it was noiseless generation, Zzz, as he called it, and that was what he was aspiring to. Those are the types of dreams that redefine our journey. And as I said last night, this is possible. But as we move on and bring the curtains down on this summit, I would like to salute all of our speakers. President Pedro Perez is still with us. I'd like you all to join me and give him a very resounding applause. And for all the participants, all the contributors, and all the sponsors, I think that your very enthusiastic contributions and deliberations deserve no less a round of applause. Let me say that for the avoidance of doubt, if anybody still had any doubt at all, let me say very clearly that generation and distribution of power is now a private sector affair. So let nobody be in doubt. It's no longer government business. It's now private sector. But we know that private sector requires government to enable them do their work through policy. And this is what we commit to. This is why we have dared to make power the summit of this theme. We do so because we believe that this summit, with its very remarkable records of implementing over 90% of resolutions that have been made since 2000, can stake its reputation and human resource on solving this power jinx, or at least making a significant and impactful dent on the power challenge over the next 2 years. We require power for industries. We require them for agriculture, for transport, and for housing. The private sector requires funding. It requires gas. It requires safety of its assets in order to function optimally. The Lagos State government sees a partnership role here with the new owners of the distribution and power assets. A partnership role where we can share data with them through our audits and through the feedback from the residents' registration exercise. So citizens have a role to play here. If we want power, we must show up now that we are consuming power, because the power companies need to know who is using the power so that they can plan and produce the power. Government will perhaps have to make laws, regulations at state level to protect the assets of the power companies, to enable security formations to evolve, and perhaps this is a compelling case to revisit the issue of municipal policing or state policing or whatever you want to call it. Rights of way, permits, and all of those have been put on the front burner for the erection of substations, for the erection of gas pipelines, for the erection of transformers, and so on and so forth. Indeed, when all of this is put in place, let us not forget that these private owners have taken up these assets for the purpose not of charity, but of profit. And therefore, they must collect bills. So for us, our partnership with them should reduce the risk, because bankers are also here, and if they do not see a way towards realizing their investments, the risk is higher, and of course the cost of delivery will be higher. So this is a journey of mutual benefit. Indeed, as government, I believe that today the Lagos State government is the largest customer or consumer that the two power companies have in areas where our IPPs have not covered, in staff quarters, schools, hospitals where we have not reached. So we are already working with the owners to create a single billing platform where all their bills can come centrally and they can be paid once and for all. So, for the benefit of the public, we have had 2 important meetings with them, and these meetings will continue. I have chaired those meetings to show high-level importance we place on the road ahead. But beyond government and the private sector and the owners of these assets, let me say that everybody, those who are here, those who are listening to us, those who are watching us, and those who will hear us in the course of the next 24 months, have very important roles to play. Last night, when those young men and ladies were expressing their dreams, the resounding response from the audience was amen, amen, amen. But I said to them that this is not something to pray about, it is something to act about. If you look at all the nations, whether it is in the Middle East or whether it is in Western Europe, they will tell you that electricity does not come from religious institutions. It comes by hard work and a disciplined and orderly life. So what are those things that we have to do as ordinary Nigerians, as ordinary Lagosians? We must take ownership of those assets as if they were our assets, because ultimately it is us that they serve. We cannot, in fits of anger, then break electricity poles. We cannot, in fits of disagreement, damage transformers. We cannot use electricity formations, poles, as brakes when our vehicles lose control. We all owe responsibility now to conserve power, because that is the way that it will go round. It is a shared asset, and an unlimitless consumption is never satisfied by unlimited supply. It is simply uneconomic. Production reaches a plateau where conservation and responsible use become the basis for achieving sustainability. And conservation means switching off light points when we don't need them, switching off air conditioning and other electrical appliances that are not in use. Now, we have achieved that in telecoms, because it is only in this part of the world that the word flash evolved. But for me, it's a strong message of conservation of credit units. So if we can conserve credit units, we can conserve electricity, which is much more important, which is necessary to produce those credit units. And we must be ready to pay our legitimate bills. We must stand up as a people against illegal connections. We must see every illegal connection as a threat to our own legal use of power. And therefore, we must not wait for government. We must not wait for the private owners. There must be a community action against this kind of conduct. And of course, we must stop buying second-hand electrical materials, second-hand cables, second-hand transformers, second-hand meters, second-hand equipment used in distribution of electricity. Suggest to me, and should suggest to you, and should suggest to all of us that it was stolen from a public grid. And therefore, every time you fuel it, you are actually fueling darkness for yourself. And so all those markets we must resist now. And we must resist the temptation to cut corners. No, there must be no illegal connections, and we must report. So we need a citizens' army to achieve this dream, which is already within our grasp. With this said, I thank you all once again for participating very enthusiastically and robustly. And I think that our work is cut out for us. As for my part, between now and the next summit, my team and I have one more year and a few months of hard work to do before we hand over to the next team. But I assure you, we are ready to work if you are. Thank you all. God bless you.